Welcome back to Encyclopedia.zone. My name is Dr. Don Jolly. I am the editor-in-chief of Encyclopedia.zone, the internet's premier home for literary shitposting. So if you are in the mood to spend a little bit of time reading the best experimental internet literature that is also composed of hilarious jokes available, then point your browser over to encyclopedia.zone. That's right, the same machine that you use to access Zoom meetings for work and pornography for after work can also be used to access highbrow internet literary culture, but only at encyclopedia.zone and also at archive.is pages holding mid-2000s level archives of FIAD threads. R.I.P. Barnacle Jim. Anyway, so yeah, have you guys noticed that we haven't had one of these fucking superhero movies in a year? I don't know if you know about this, but there's this thing called the coronavirus that's going on right now. And apparently it's an infectious disease virus that has come from someplace called China. I haven't actually confirmed that. I don't know what the hell's going on with China. According to some of these 1930s shadow paperbacks that I've been reading by Walter B. Gibson, they're up to some bad shit. But once again, we're still confirming it. Anyway, there is this virus, this highly infectious virus, which is, I believe, as of the most recent development, the CDC is admitting that it can be airborne, and it has caused a massive downturn in a number of industries, one of which is entertainment, specifically the movies. The movie industry, the movie business is really in a different place right now than it was, let's say, December of 2019, when, you know, we all thrilled to watch Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. When we were all so excited, when we all came together as a people to watch this great Disney product, we couldn't imagine that the next year was going to be absolutely bereft of that kind of quality blockbuster superhero entertainment that we've come to count on over the years. Once again, because of this coronavirus thing, movie theaters were forced to shut down to keep people from congregating in indoor environments, which killed the necessary summer movie season, the summer movie season, which is when the theater industry and Hollywood recoups most of its money. And so now the movie theater industry, the theaters themselves, are asking for a bailout from the federal government in the way that airlines, another industry disrupted by the coronavirus, and restaurants and venues, they're, you know, they're all looking for government money to sustain themselves because they're out of options. Comic book industry is in decline. A lot of things have been disrupted by this coronavirus. The coronavirus is a lot like Mark Zuckerberg in that way. It's disruptive. It's a disruptive influence. But the net effect of it, that I'm sure that, you know, you guys might not have thought about this, because it's like, I'm digging down into the substrata of the news right here, but we haven't been able to see the new Wonder Woman. We haven't been able to see the new Captain America, the new Batman. The guy they got playing Batman now actually got coronavirus. So they had to shut down production on his film. And, yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of enjoying it, to be perfectly honest with you. I mean, I think that there's this phenomenon that's come out of Corona. I mean, obviously I'm being a little hyperbolic. I'm putting on a little bit of a show. I hope that it's funny, but the coronavirus has been a sobering period for so many people in so many walks of life and on so many levels. I feel like a lot of our public discourse, especially, which, you know, is the thing that we're engaging with when we're consuming internet media, because, like, you know, I can talk to you about what's going on in my life personally all I want, but the purpose of doing a YouTube channel is to get publicity for the writing that goes up on Encyclopedia Zone, and also for print publications, which we would be putting out. And I actually have the money now to put together a print magazine, so I'm hoping to have more information about that soon. But the purpose of doing a YouTube channel, is to get, attention and publicity for these other projects. So that means that I'm engaging with the cultural conversation that exists outside of me. I don't really get to pick the topics. I mean, I have a certain amount of latitude in it, but if you really want to grow the channel, you really want to be successful in the media environment of YouTube, the way that you do it is you follow the trend lines. You participate in the cultural discourse, which is essentially a subset of topics, or a small selection of topics, not a subset. It's a particular selection of topics which are both organically generated, shaped by PR firms and various amounts of paid promotion, and then also ultimately controlled by dispassionate AI algorithms. I mean, it's a bizarre field of possible cultural themes and modes. And slightly inhuman to engage with, but them's the breaks. You get on fucking YouTube, that's what you're engaging with. So either you can swim against the stream, or you can try to make the best of it. And generally, I try to make the best of it. But this cultural conversation for years has been dominated by Hollywood blockbuster film. Bringing up the Rise of Skywalker or whatever, it's like that The Last Jedi, that Rian Johnson Star Wars movie that was super, everybody fucking hated it or fucking loved it, very divisive. That movie, hating on that movie, is a massive subgenre of internet content. It has created careers to hate on The Last Jedi. And, there's a lot of valid complaints that you can make about it, but it's at a certain point, even the conversation that is about how much this thing sucks is still being directed by the thing. And you see a little bit of that now. I mean, even this video is an outgrowth of that. We have had a year, because the coronavirus has disrupted the theater industry in the way that it has. We've had a year now, basically, without these big tentpole 4-quadrant blockbuster films that have a tendency to drive the conversation, both when they're good, when they're bad, whatever. They sort of determine what is on everybody's mind. And stuff like, think about these. This was only a couple years ago. This is very quick. The Ghostbusters 2016 thing, which became this larger conversation about sexism and entitled fandom and all of these concepts that just, I don't know, if you're me, they seem completely fucking retarded now. Because we're looking at more unemployment than the Great Depression. We're looking at a world where a lot of financial institutions have been completely, or industries have been completely upended. We're looking at a world where assumptions that we had about ourselves and our government and the way that we work are now very much in question. We're looking at a world where people are killing each other in the streets in dedicated inner city PvP zones, divided up according to different species of political LARPing. We're looking at a very different world than the world that could give that much of a shit about The Last Jedi, that could give that much of a shit about Sony remaking Ghostbusters with Melissa fucking McCarthy. The conversation has moved on. And it's moved on in some actually kind of interesting ways. One of the things I've noticed is that people are still talking about Hollywood. It's just that those conversations, conversations about blockbuster films and about the industry behind those blockbuster films, used to be very focused on the films themselves. It used to be kind of, you'd get a side order of business, you'd get a side order of cultural context, but then the main course of this particular brand of online content is primarily, I'm talking about YouTube videos and a scattering of articles that I mostly consume through their summarization in YouTube videos. you would get a side order of business stuff, cultural context, and then the main course would be, I'm going to review this movie and I'm going to tell you everything about it that's fucking great. I'm going to be every frame of painting, and I'm going to tell you how fucking magnificent this is and how beautifully put together it is. Or I'm going to be Voxus Productions or Critical Drinker or one of those guys, and I'm going to tell you every single thing that fucking blows ass about this movie. So those are the two. I mean, you know, and there's a bunch of variations in between those, but the main course is the review of the actual product itself. So what's happened now is now there are no products, so there is no review, but there's still just as much content as there ever was. It's just that the cultural context and the industry information has become paramount. So all of these things, all of these, like, you know, I'm going to fucking slam on this movie YouTuber, or like, this movie is so great, let's talk about Hollywood movies. Like, both of those genres of people, I'd say, like, you know, Critical Drinker representing the anti-end and Grace Randolph representing the pro, have become very focused on the industry. And instead of covering the release of films, they're covering the absence of films. This has gotten, like Critical Drinker, for instance, in the absence of new release stuff, he's doing a lot of videos highlighting movies that he actually likes, which I think is an interesting approach. Grace Randolph used to do a series every Sunday called Movie Math, where she'd talk about box office returns. There are no box office returns, so now she does a weekly series talking about the ways that Hollywood is pivoting and writhing in its final pain, trying to figure out how it's going to work in a world where, you know, the coasts still do not have open movie theaters. The theater industry is on life support. Regal and their parent company in England just announced that they're going to be shutting down all of their American and British theaters. Post-corona, a lot of the financial stuff about how the movie industry functioned no longer works. And so now these people that started off as, like, you know, pretty middle of the road, you know, entertainment channels are now talking about business. And I think that that's a larger phenomenon that's just related to COVID in general. When this thing started, I kind of put my foot in my mouth by saying that I thought that this crisis was going to force our government and our various oligarchical rulers in the corporate world to start acknowledging their responsibility to the people that are their consumers and employees and citizens. You know, nominally citizens. And not because it's the goodness of their heart, but just as a matter of, like, base survival. Because if they weren't able to handle this, if they weren't able to step up and make sure that people felt secure as their worlds were, you know, massively transformed by this viral outbreak, then there would be such a fantastic loss of confidence that the illusions that perpetuate the modern world would cease to function. And I grossly overestimated the adaptive capability of these power structures. It has been a complete and fucking total shit show. It has been a failure on all levels. You know, and this is why it's quaint at the moment to talk about politics as like an individual phenomenon, because politics is just one corner of this massive set of institutional failures that we're all staring in the face right now. And the powers that be, the institutional structures that govern our lives, have completely failed to meet this crisis on every goddamn level. But one thing I will say is that, at least for my own part and on the part of the people that I see in day-to-day life, I think that there has been a great sobering and a sort of graduation out of the extended childhood that was created by, you know, the incredibly tenuous economy of the last 20 years, into a greater recognition of how serious and multifaceted the world that we live in is. I think that this has been the end of childhood for a lot of people, or at least the momentary interruption of childhood. And I can't think of a better emblem for that than coverage of Hollywood going from, like, fun, you know, hey, movie reviews, movies, it's so much fun, the magic of the movies, blah, 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 to let's analyze how this industry is falling down around its ears and how it's going to pivot and how we're going to make money. Like, they're both essentially popcorn information streams, you know, like, unless you're actually in the entertainment business, which, you know, when I started off, when I decided I was going to do this video, I was going to do a rant on this topic, my initial framing was the upshots of coronavirus. And I was going to talk about how the big upshot of coronavirus is I haven't had to hear a mumbling fucking word about Wonder Woman 1984 this year. Not actually true, because even though Wonder Woman 1984 has been delayed indefinitely, I think, I still hear about it all the fucking time. I still see Wonder Woman 1984 scented candles when I walk my ass down to the H-E-B. It's still very much in the cultural conversation. It's just its absence rather than its presence is now the topic under discussion. And also, you know, Schadenfreude plays very well on YouTube, and it's easy to look at Hollywood falling down around itself, you know, see the theater industry eating shit, seeing, you know, movies like Christopher Nolan's new movie Tenet comes out, makes $30 million. It's fun to laugh at that end of it because the most public parts of it are guys like Christopher Nolan, you know, big prominent actors and performers. And, you know, these people are all rich jack-offs. I mean, you talk about Wonder Woman, Gal Gadot from Wonder Woman recorded that fucking terrible, pretentious John Lennon Imagine video where she's essentially mocking poor people for being upset about the coronavirus and the destruction of their lives. So, like, fuck her. You know, fuck them. It's easy to say fuck you to big public multimillionaires, but a lot of the entertainment industry is not that. I worked in movie theaters for years. There's a lot of projectionists, a lot of concession people, a lot of people work in the box office. There's people all up and down the line in the production end on Hollywood that do not have the kind of money that warrants a fuck you, and they're all getting, you know, rammed by this. It's never a good thing when an industry collapses because it's going to affect a lot of people up and down the line. And as much fun as it is to imagine that this is gonna cut into the bottom line of, you know, fucking Gal Gadot or Leonardo DiCaprio or whoever you happen to have a mat on against, they're gonna be fine. They've got tons of fucking money, and they've got assets that they're going to be able to trade on into the future. The people who have been working in a movie theater for years, and that's their skill set, and they, you know, up until now, that was a pretty decent job to have, that now have discovered that the entire, not just their particular theater is closing, but that all the theaters are closing, sometimes by government mandate and sometimes just because the economics don't work anymore. The fact that their entire industry has evaporated out from under them is a terrible thing. And it's not as easy, you know, it's like that learn to code thing when the BuzzFeed and all those people were talking about retraining coal miners to program JavaScript. It's like, it's hard to learn a new business. It's hard to break into a new business. I mean, we're talking about people that had, you know, we're talking about a fucking major industry that employed a lot of people. Maybe it didn't give them the best treatment or the best jobs, but it employed a lot of people. And so it's sad to see that fall in on itself. You know, the whole thing, like, people have this tendency, especially on the internet, to personalize institutions. Like, my favorite example of this is you go on Twitter and you see the account that's Joe Biden or Donald Trump or whatever. I mean, the Donald Trump one is like, its brand is that he's actually tweeting. Everybody takes that seriously. That's kind of maybe a side conversation, you know? But, like, Joe Biden puts... I saw this the other day. Joe Biden put up a tweet, the Joe Biden Twitter account, put up a tweet. It was a picture of him and his wife. And he said, "You're the best teacher in the world, Jill. I love you. I love you, Jill Biden." And it's like, Biden didn't write that. Like, some staffer wrote that. Biden didn't take the picture. Like, it's a press release, essentially. But then I went into the comments on it, and it's all these people being like, "That's so sweet, you know, love you, Joe." And then people saying, like, "Fuck you, you're an embarrassment." But they're all talking to the Twitter account as if it's actually Joe Biden and as if he's, like, going to read it. And it's, you know, I think it's because if you're a smaller account, like, if you go on my Twitter account, it's actually me. So if you tell me that I fucking suck on Twitter, yeah, I'm going to see that, and it's going to hurt. But if you tell that to Joe Biden, he's not going to see it. He doesn't even know what Twitter is. Like, he's completely insulated from this. But the internet is more fun if you believe that it is a level playing field. And that was one of the sells of the internet for years and years, right? It's like, yeah, okay, on television, these guys, there's this mass media organ that only a few people have access to, and they have this overpowering ability. Like, they can talk to me, I can't talk to them. But on the internet, ooh, ABC News is just the same as me, dude. And, that's one of the big sells, the democratization of information. And it should be noted that the internet is a more democratic information distribution platform than has ever existed. But that doesn't mean it's totally democratic, and it definitely doesn't mean that institutions and individuals are treated the same on it. Because, I'm uploading this to YouTube. This is owned by Google, and they obviously treat institutions preferentially on this platform versus independent, just a dude with a couple of thousand followers. Like, it all comes down to suction. It all comes down to money, just the same as any other media. But it's more fun to sort of believe the lie of the internet, which is that there is this total democracy. Because, like, you see that tweet that Joe Biden puts up, and what's more fun? Like, thinking, oh, this is something that some staffer put up, and it's not a very good press release. Or pretending that Joe Biden can hear you and saying, hey, fuck you, old man. Or, like, go on any Trump tweet. See the ocean of people that are talking to it as if they have a personal relationship with Donald Trump. Donald Trump is not reading your reply. Donald Trump is probably not writing that tweet. There's probably an AI writing that tweet. There's a Nazi's brain in a jar that is writing the tweets for every politician and multinational corporation that exists. You ever read The Conqueror Worm, the Hellboy story, where he goes and he sees all the severed Nazi psychic heads in the iron tubes? That's what you're interacting with. You are not interacting with human beings. But it's more fun if you pretend that you are. And that's why people like that. That's why it's fun to pretend that the only people that are going to get fucked over in the collapse of the entertainment industry and the collapse of Hollywood, it's more fun to pretend that it's the big celebrities that you know about. Because the other story, the story about, theater ushers losing their jobs, the story about special effects people being put out of work or whatever, or stuntmen or extras or gaffers or grips, that's a big, complicated business story. That would actually, that would take some legwork to report in a serious way. But saying, fuck you, Gal Gadot, is emotionally satisfying. Fuck you, Gal Gadot. Wow, I'm satisfied right now. And you don't have to do any work to deliver it. I'm not trying to shame people, like, engaging that kind of behavior. I engage in that kind of behavior myself. I have been guilty of going into politicians' Twitter threads and getting in that crispy own as if I'm talking to a human being. And you know why? Because it's fun. It's fun. It's diverting. But it's not the truth. It's not the truth. So I do think that there's this thing happening, though, and the collapse of Hollywood and the conversation around it is very emblematic. I think that Corona is pushing all of us towards an unwanted but desperately needed maturity. Not all of us. I talked to some people and they're like, essentially the collapse of all of these, like, sort of purposefully useless, what should I say? The collapse of all of these purposefully trivial modes of discourse have made them crazy as a shithouse rat because they are clinging desperately. They want so bad for their take on Ghostbusters 2016 to be the thing that makes them valid and real again. I was talking to somebody on the phone the other day, somebody who is crazy as a shithouse rat, and this individual like went on a massive screed, and I understand I'm going on a massive screed right now, but I'm doing a YouTube video. This was a phone conversation. I couldn't get a word in edgewise. This person was just going a mile a minute, obviously on some kind of a drug, and said, like paused for dramatic effect before and after saying this. Socialism, or no, not sorry, I fucked it up. Capitalism is the butthole of the world. Whoa, mind blown. Like, look, this isn't about political ideology at this point. It's a profoundly stupid, that's like the kind of thing a 13 to a 15-year-old says. Capitalism is the butthole of the world. Whoa, aren't you impressed? Aren't you fucking impressed with me? And I, in this conversation, I just said, wow. I couldn't believe it. But thank God the person wasn't listening to me at all, or they would have picked up on the fact that I thought they were a total fucking moron. Like, people like that seem to be going a little nuts. They want everybody to be impressed with them. They want their bullshit to keep working. But it just doesn't. Like, I have seen so many people back off from their, like, mediated, hyper-media determined political ideologies this year. I've seen so many people back off from politics. I've seen so many people just kind of take their hand off the throttle and return a little bit to human reality. Because, like, look, the reality out there, the reality outside is really fucking hard. And it's going to be very difficult for us to navigate it over the next couple of years. And we all got to be aware of our surroundings. We all got to be thinking more than we have been, and we can't just fall back on these diversionary areas of discourse that mean fucking nothing. Melissa McCarthy doesn't count for shit. Gal Gadot is not important. We are in the fucking jungle now, and that means we gotta fucking take care of ourselves, and we gotta start thinking about our situation. So Corona, we come around to it. There is an upshot of the coronavirus. There's a big upshot because it's forced a lot of people to fucking grow up. It's forced our discourse to fucking grow up, at least partially and in some capacity. All of this argument is completely counteracted by looking at Twitter for 15 fucking seconds. So please don't do that. I mean, I actually have a, Twitter is the refuge of the people that are crazy as a shithouse rat. But Twitter is not the world, as I think that that's become abundantly clear to people. Twitter is not the world, and coronavirus, if it has any upshot at all, has the upshot that it has reminded us of that fact. So anyway, that's about it for this week, and or that's about it for today. I will see you later in the week.